Summary of Dead Wrong, a cozy mystery written by Vannetta Chapman. Chapter 1. Agatha Lapp stood on the worn wooden steps of her back porch, a sense of tranquility washing over her despite the flurry of activity that typically accompanied the management of Plain and Simple B&B. Cradled in her left arm were fresh bed linens and towels destined for cabin 3, her gaze momentarily drawn to the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. The day had been long, but Agatha felt no urgency to rush through it. After all, what was the point of living in the beautiful Texas hill country if one didn't take the time to pause and appreciate its splendor? With a gentle touch, Agatha ensured that her cap was securely in place, a habit ingrained by years of tradition. Adjusting her apron with a tug, she made her way down the porch steps, each creak a familiar melody in the symphony of her daily routine. The June evening promised warmth and comfort, a welcome respite from the scorching days of summer. As she walked, Agatha couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had led her to this moment. Plain and Simple B&B had been a labor of love, a dream realized through hard work and determination. The property, nestled in the heart of the Texas hill country, had been passed down to her by her brooder and schwester-in-law, who had recognized its potential despite their shortcomings as business owners. With its picturesque setting along the south fork of the Guadalupe River and rugged limestone hills stretching as far as the eye could see, it was the perfect retreat for weary travelers seeking respite from the chaos of modern life. The B&B itself was a charming two-story house, with a master suite downstairs that Agatha had converted into her own living space and office. Upstairs, 4 additional large rooms awaited guests, each with its own private bath. In addition to the main house, Agatha had added 3 cabins along the path that wound its way down to the river, offering a secluded escape for those craving solitude amidst nature's embrace. Despite its humble beginnings, Plain and Simple B&B had quickly gained a reputation for its warm hospitality and tranquil surroundings. Agatha's meticulous attention to detail ensured that each guest felt welcomed and cared for, their needs anticipated before they even had a chance to voice them. It was this dedication to excellence that had earned her a loyal following, with guests returning year after year to experience the magic of the Texas hill country. As Agatha made her way down the path towards cabin 3, her mind wandered to the eclectic mix of guests currently staying at the B&B. Mason and Paxton Cox, avid fishermen, stood waist-deep in the river, their lines dancing in the twilight as they patiently awaited their next catch. The Willis family, a bustling group of Englishers, had claimed a spot on the riverbank, their laughter mingling with the gentle rustle of the breeze. Brooklyn, the youngest member of the Willis family, flitted about with her camera in hand, capturing snapshots of the idyllic scene unfolding around her. Agatha couldn't help but smile at the sight of the young girl, her enthusiasm contagious as she sought to immortalize every moment of their vacation. As she approached cabin 3, Agatha's thoughts turned to its elusive occupant, Mr. Dixon. A man of few words, he valued his privacy above all else, choosing the secluded cabin tucked away at the far end of the path. Agatha paused outside the cabin door, hesitating for a moment before knocking gently. "Anyone home?" she called out, her voice echoing in the stillness of the evening. "Agatha Lapp, here." There was no response, but Agatha had expected as much. Mr. Dixon was not one for idle conversation, preferring to keep to himself whenever possible. With a sigh, Agatha reached into the pocket of her apron and retrieved the master key, sliding it into the lock with practiced ease. Pushing open the door, Agatha stepped inside, her eyes quickly scanning the room for any signs of life. What she found, however, left her reeling in shock. Mr. Dixon's belongings lay scattered haphazardly around the room, his suitcase flung open and clothes strewn across the floor. The breakfast tray Agatha had left on the porch earlier that morning sat abandoned on the nightstand, the remnants of a meal left untouched. It was clear that something was amiss, and Agatha's heart began to race as she surveyed the scene before her. Rushing to the back door, Agatha's worst fears were confirmed. Mr. Dixon lay motionless on the ground, his body twisted at an unnatural angle, a silent testament to the tragedy that had unfolded. With trembling hands, Agatha reached for her phone, her mind racing as she dialed for help. The authorities arrived swiftly, their faces grave as they began their investigation into Mr. Dixon's death. Agatha provided a detailed account of her discovery, her voice steady, despite the turmoil raging within her. The other guests, unaware of the tragedy unfolding just steps away, continued their activities, their laughter a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere that now permeated the B&B. As the investigation progressed, Agatha found herself thrust into the spotlight, her every action scrutinized as the community grappled with the shocking news. Rumors swirled, speculation running rampant as people searched for answers in the wake of Mr. Dixon's untimely demise. In the days that followed, Agatha struggled to come to terms with the events that had transpired. The once peaceful haven of plain and simple B&B now felt tainted by tragedy, the serenity of its surroundings shattered by the specter of death. Yet amidst the chaos, Agatha remained steadfast in her commitment to her guests, determined to restore a sense of normalcy to the B&B she had worked so hard to build. With the support of the community and her loyal guests, Agatha navigated through the difficult period, finding solace in the shared moments of camaraderie and support. Though the memory of Mr. Dixon's death would forever linger, it served as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing each moment as if it were our last. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the Texas Hill Country, Agatha stood on the porch of plain and simple B&B, her gaze fixed on the river below. Though the events of the past few days had left their mark, she found comfort in the knowledge that amidst the darkness, there remained a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, life would go on, and the spirit of plain and simple B&B would endure. Chapter 2. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the tranquil landscape of Agatha's property. She had been in the midst of her daily chores when the tranquility shattered, and her world tilted on its axis. The linen slipped from her grasp as she rushed down the steps of her cabin, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and disbelief. Kneeling beside Mr. Dixon, her fingers trembled as they sought his pulse, a futile attempt to deny the reality unfolding before her. But there was no pulse to be found. Only the cold stiffness of death that clung to his lifeless form. Agatha recoiled, her breath catching in her throat as she stumbled backward, her mind reeling with shock. The world seemed to blur around her as she grappled with the enormity of what she had discovered. Mr. Dixon, a familiar face among her guests, now lay motionless before her, his presence haunting in its absence. Panic surged through her veins, a tidal wave of fear and uncertainty crashing against the fragile shores of her composure. Her thoughts raced, a whirlwind of doubt and confusion. Had she imagined it? Was this some cruel trick of the mind, a nightmare from which she would soon awaken? But the cold reality of Mr. Dixon's lifeless body shattered any illusions of denial, leaving her trembling in its wake. Desperate for help, Agatha's gaze darted towards her cabin, where her guests remained blissfully unaware of the tragedy unfolding just steps away. The thought of facing them with news of Mr. Dixon's passing filled her with dread, but she knew she could not bear the burden alone. Yet, the prospect of seeking help from distant neighbors seemed equally daunting, a journey fraught with uncertainty and danger. In her moment of need, Agatha turned to the one neighbor she scarcely knew, Mr. Vargas. Despite his reclusive nature, she prayed he would offer assistance in her hour of need. With determination coursing through her veins, she pushed through the hedge of Texas sage that bordered their properties, her heart pounding with each step. As she reached Mr. Vargas's back porch, he appeared like a beacon of hope amidst the gathering shadows. His brow furrowed with concern as Agatha blurted out the grim truth, her words tumbling forth in a rush of desperation. Without hesitation, Mr. Vargas sprang into action, his actions guided by a sense of duty and compassion. He retrieved his phone and dashed towards cabin 3, leaving Agatha to grapple with her tumultuous emotions. Alone on the porch, she sought solace in prayer, her whispered pleas echoing in the stillness of the afternoon. She prayed for guidance, for strength, for the soul of the departed, each word a lifeline in the sea of uncertainty. When Mr. Vargas returned, his somber expression confirmed Agatha's worst fears. Mr. Dixon was indeed gone, leaving behind a void that seemed impossible to fill. As they exchanged introductions, Agatha marveled at the kindness in Mr. Vargas's eyes, a stark contrast to his stoic exterior. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Mr. Vargas provided a steady presence amidst the chaos. He ushered Agatha inside, ensuring her comfort as they awaited the arrival of authorities. His gentle reassurances offered a lifeline in the sea of uncertainty, grounding her in the reality of the moment. As sirens wailed in the distance, Agatha felt a sense of relief wash over her. Help was on the way, bringing with it the promise of closure and resolution. With Mr. Vargas by her side, she faced the unknown with newfound courage, her faith guiding her through the shadows cast by the afternoon sun. In the days that followed, Agatha found herself leaning on Mr. Vargas for support, their bond forged in the crucible of tragedy. Together, they navigated the difficult task of informing her guests and grappling with the aftermath of Mr. Dixon's passing. Though the pain of loss lingered like a shadow, Agatha found solace in the kindness of her neighbor and the strength of her faith. And as she looked towards the horizon, she knew that even in the darkest of times, there would always be a glimmer of hope, shining bright against the backdrop of life's uncertainties. With each passing day, Agatha found herself drawing strength from the memories of Mr. Dixon, a reminder of the fragile beauty of life and the resilience of the human spirit. And as she carried on with her daily routines, she vowed to cherish each moment, knowing that tomorrow was never promised. In the quiet moments of reflection, Agatha found herself grateful for the unexpected bond she had forged with Mr. Vargas, a reminder that even in times of despair, there were angels among us, guiding us through the darkness towards the light. And as she watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Agatha felt a sense of peace wash over her. For in the echoes of the afternoon sun, she found the strength to carry on, knowing that love would always triumph over loss, and hope would always endure, like a beacon in the night.